Hey everybody, I'm coming to you from beautiful Highland County, Virginia. I'm standing on Cemetery Hill on the McDowell battlefield. The Battle of McDowell was fought May 8th, 1862, and is the first victory for Confederate General Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson during his famous Shenandoah Valley campaign of 1862. In late April of 1862, General Jackson is going to move his army south. He is going to leave Richard S. Ewell at a place called Conrad's Store, as present-day Elkton, Virginia. Ewell has no clue what Jackson is doing other than he's moving south, and his job is to stay at Conrad's Store and keep an eye on Union General Nathaniel P. Banks, who is at Harrisonburg. As Jackson moves south, he's going to move through Port Republic, then all the way down to Stanton. His army's going to get on some trains in Stanton. It's going to look as if Stonewall Jackson is leaving the Shenandoah Valley. He's doing anything but that. He will come back into the valley after getting off those trains and link up with General Edward Allegheny Johnson's command. They together will march toward McDowell. Here in McDowell is a Union force under the command of Robert H. Milroy. Now, Milroy, prior to this, has been pushing the Confederates ever so slightly farther and farther towards Stanton. The ultimate Union goal is to get to Stanton. Milroy is doing this against orders, as he's told to be cautious. Milroy will finally fall back to this area and occupy the town. Jackson will advance with Johnson, and they will get here to McDowell on May 8th. They will begin to put troops up on this hill here. This is known as Sitlington's Hill. It's a spur of the Bull Pasture Mountains. As Milroy is watching this, he is called for assistance. That assistance arrives in the form of Robert C. Schenck and his command. Both generals are now worried that as the Confederates occupy this position, they're going to put artillery up there. In fact, rumors are coming in constantly that Confederates are moving artillery up on the hill. Jackson, in fact, has contemplated this. He's looked at bringing his artillery up on Sitlington's Hill, but he can't do it. The ravines are very rough. It's hard enough for the foot soldiers to march up. To try to bring guns up, you might be able to get them up there. The problem is, if you have a major setback, you can't get them off the mountain quick enough. Jackson realizes this, tells his cartographer, Jedediah Hotchkiss, I need you to find a place either around, behind, in front, wherever, with the Union Army, and have these guns in place by 4 a.m. so that we can destroy the federal force here. Schenck and Milroy are not going to let that happen. They decide to hit the Confederates before the Confederates hit them. They're going to launch what's known as a spoiling attack, or a reconnaissance in force. They're going to send some Ohio troops, the 75th and 25th Ohio, who are actually down here in this, down here along the plains, along the river. They're going to send them across the river, and those Ohioans are going to go to that ridge right there. They're going to come around some ravines and come up the ridge. On that ridge is the 12th Georgia Infantry. The 12th Georgia is up there in an inverted V shape, and they're going to be taking massive casualties during this part of the battle. As one wing of the Georgians would come back after their commander implored them to pull back, he would go to the other wing, and as the other wing would pull back, this wing would come back forward. It did this several times until finally he was able to convince his Georgia troops to move back to the main Confederate line. Again, they suffer heavy casualties there. At the end of this battle, it's around 35% of casualties, and I think more than half of Stonewall Jackson's casualties at this battle are the 12th Georgia. When the 12th Georgia gets back to the line, one Confederate soldier is going to look at the Georgians, and he's going to say, "Why did you guys stay there and fight so long? What were you thinking?" One of the Georgian troops replies, "We did not come all the way to Virginia to run before the Yankees." The 75th and 25th Ohio are going to start to push in on the Confederate left. They will be facing the 58th and 52nd Virginia. Milroy, seeing the success of the 75th and 25th, is getting excited. He was not expecting that much success. He is now going to send more Ohio troops, the 32nd and 82nd Ohio. He's going to send them across the river, and they are to come up and hit the Confederate right. He's also going to send the 3rd Virginia. Now, the 3rd Virginia is a Union Virginia regiment. They are going to go straight up the Stanton-Parkersburg Turnpike. They will run into the Confederate 31st Virginia. Both units have men from the same town. And matter of fact, as the fighting intensifies there, with the 31st actually wrapping around the 3rd and making them fight both ways, one of the Union soldiers will say that the jibs and jabs at each other were flying thicker than the bullets of battle. This is because they saw each other, knew each other, decided to hurl insults, which is probably better than shooting each other. The 31st will get called away as the emergency on the right picks up. The 31st will go up to Sitlington's Hill. The 3rd will actually pull off and begin attacking that right flank as well. The fighting is going to intensify on this hill, and as the evening goes, the Confederates in that great position are going to be silhouetted against the sky because the sun's going down. The Federal troops in their dark blue uniforms coming up through the ravines are camouflaged. The only thing the Confederates can do is fire at the musket volleys that they see. As the muskets fire, they're going to shoot at whatever they see flashing. Many people will be down here, many troops will be down here watching the fight on the hill, and we'll call it a spectacular show. It'll look as if the mountain is on fire. Now, the Union does have some artillery. That artillery is here on Cemetery Hill. It's in the form of Union Battery I of the 1st Ohio Light Artillery. Now, these guys are lobbing shells toward Sitlington's Hill. It's not working out. They're going to actually dig down and put the trails of the guns farther into the ground to try to get elevation to launch these shells into Sitlington's Hill. It doesn't work. Eventually, the Union troops will begin to run out of ammunition, and rather than sending ammunition across the river, Milroy is going to recall his troops. The 75th and 25th Ohio, who have been fighting the longest, will be the last to march down. The 75th is actually the last unit off the field. They will march down and turn around and wait for other units to come down, and then they will bring up the rear of the Union Army. Fighting will stop at that point, other than some light skirmishing. Milroy and Schenck accomplished their goal. They've stunned Jackson enough to give them time to get out of Dodge, which was their goal to begin with. Jackson expects the fight to continue the next day. Instead, Milroy and Schenck skedaddle out of McDowell and head toward Monterey, then toward Franklin, present-day West Virginia, to link up with General John C. Fremont, who has 20,000 fresh Union troops at Franklin. Jackson will come down into the town on May 9th, and his troops will begin burying the dead here in the town. This is actually one of the only places, there's a marker down here across the road from the church, one of the only places where you see Union and Confederate dead buried together, identified as being buried together. Jackson will write from the town of McDowell. He'll write to Richmond yesterday. Well, he'll say, God blessed our arms with victory yesterday at McDowell. He will then begin to pursue Milroy and Schenck toward Franklin. The whole time that he's pursuing them, they're setting fire. Milroy is setting fire to the haystacks and felling trees, setting fire to the sides of the roads, choking them with smoke to slow Jackson down so that he can get to Fremont. He will make it to Fremont, and Jackson will decide not to attack Fremont, as he is vastly outnumbered at that point. Jackson will turn around and march back toward the Shenandoah Valley. In the meantime, he's going to block the mountain passes because a rumor that Nathaniel P. Banks is coming across on his rear comes to him, so he decides he needs to block the passes. This will also keep Fremont at bay from linking up with Banks if he is, in fact, coming toward Jackson. This will be a big victory for Jackson. After this, he'll go on for a series of victories here in the Shenandoah Valley. But this is the place where it's the very first victory of his Valley campaign. If you get a chance to get out here, definitely do so. There's some wonderful interpretive markers put up by the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. The battlefield is in pristine condition. It looks very much as it did in 1862. The town is a wonderful little town. There's just a lot to see. The Highland County Historical Society has a museum here in town, and it's just an interesting, neat place to be. If you get the chance to hike Sitlington's Hill, definitely do so. Bring a lot of water. It's not a very long hike, but it's a very strenuous hike. So I hope you get to come out here to McDowell and see all this wonderful history here. And just remember, history matters, and keep chasing the Civil War battlefields.